R/AITA MIL stole dad's restaurant on Christmas, so I sued her into bankruptcy. AITA for suing my mother-in-law into bankruptcy after she stole my dead father's restaurant. The call came at 6:47 a.m. on Christmas morning, and I knew before I even answered that my world was about to implode. I'm sorry to bother you on the holiday, my father's lawyer stammered through the phone, but there's been a development with the restaurant. We need to talk immediately. I was standing in my kitchen, still in my pajamas, watching my husband Jake make his grandmother's famous Christmas morning pancakes. The smell of vanilla and cinnamon filled the air, and for a moment, everything felt normal. Like maybe this first Christmas without Dad wouldn't destroy me completely. What kind of development? I asked, stepping into the hallway where Jake couldn't hear me. Someone bought the building. Yesterday. Cash sale. The new owner is demanding immediate possession and has already changed the locks. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered onto the hardwood floor. Jake appeared in the doorway, spatula still in hand, his face immediately shifting from holiday cheer to concern. Babe? What's wrong? I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Papa's Cucina, the restaurant my father had built from nothing 32 years ago, where I'd learned to make his legendary osso buco at age 12, where he taught me that food was love made tangible, was gone. That's impossible, I whispered, retrieving the phone. The building isn't even officially for sale yet. We're still in probate. I know, the lawyer said grimly. That's why we need to talk. This wasn't a normal sale. Jake was beside me now, his arm around my shoulders, and I could feel his body tense as he picked up pieces of the conversation. Who bought it? I managed to ask. A shell company called Meridian Holdings LLC. I'm trying to trace the actual buyer, but... Meridian Holdings. Jake's voice cut through the air like a blade. The color had completely drained from his face. I looked at him, confused by his reaction, but the pieces were already clicking into place in some horrible, inevitable way. Jake. What is it? He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I'd learned meant he was about to deliver news that would shatter me. That's one of my mother's companies. The world tilted sideways. Diane. My mother-in-law who'd never missed an opportunity to remind me that I came from restaurant people while she came from real estate royalty. Who'd suggested at Dad's funeral that maybe this was a chance for me to pursue something more suitable. Who'd been suspiciously interested in the details of Dad's estate whenever she thought I wasn't listening. Your mother bought my father's restaurant. The words came out as a whisper, but I felt them like screams. Jake was already reaching for his phone. I'm calling her. This has to be a mistake. She wouldn't. She would. The certainty hit me like a physical blow. She absolutely would. Because this wasn't just about a building or a business. Papa's Cucina was my inheritance, my future, my father's legacy that I planned to honor by expanding his dream. It was the place where Jake had proposed to me just 6 months ago, getting down on one knee right next to table 12 where my parents had their first date. And Diane had taken it. On Christmas Eve. While I was home grieving, she'd stolen the last piece of my father I had left. Jake's call to his mother went straight to voicemail. Then straight to voicemail again. And again. She's not answering, he said, but I could see the growing realization in his eyes. The same sick understanding that was settling into my bones like poison. Call your father. Mom handles all the real estate stuff. Dad doesn't even know the names of half her companies. Jake's voice was getting smaller with each word. But I'll try. While he dialed, I called my father's lawyer back. I need to know everything about this sale. Every detail. Every document. Every goddamn signature. The sale went through a private broker yesterday at 4 p.m. No inspection period, no contingencies. They paid 30% over asking price. Asking price? We never set an asking price. According to the paperwork I'm looking at, the estate attorney listed it 3 days ago. The estate attorney. Dad's original lawyer who'd handled his will, the one who'd been acting strange during our last meeting, avoiding eye contact when I'd asked about timeline for the probate process. Did you authorize that listing? I already knew the answer. Absolutely not. And here's where it gets worse, they're claiming the sale supersedes any inheritance claims because the estate needed immediate liquidity to cover debts. What debts? Dad owned the building free and clear. Apparently some liens were filed last week. Back taxes, contractor disputes, health department violations. All dated after your father's death but claiming they originated before. My hands were shaking now. This wasn't opportunistic greed. This was orchestrated destruction. Jake's voice rose from across the room. Dad, I need you to wake up Mom and put her on the phone. Now. A pause. I don't care if she's at her yoga retreat. Get her on the phone or I'm driving up there. I heard the muffled sound of Jake's father protesting, something about Christmas morning and family harmony. Family harmony. Jake's laugh was bitter. Dad, I think Mom just destroyed my marriage. The silence that followed was deafening. I have to see it, I told the lawyer. I have to see the restaurant. I don't think that's a good idea right now. The new owners have already posted no trespassing signs and hired security. Security. At Papa's Cucina. The place where Dad used to leave the back door unlocked because Mrs. Chen from next door forgot her keys at least twice a month. Jake hung up his phone and turned to me with an expression I'd never seen before, like he was looking at a stranger. My dad says Mom mentioned she was helping resolve a complicated estate situation for the family. He thought she meant helping us. The words hit me like physical blows. Helping us? She stole my father's restaurant. I know. And Jake's voice cracked. Sophia, I swear to God I had no idea. You have to believe me. I wanted to believe him. But looking at Jake now, I realized how much he looked like his mother. The same sharp cheekbones, the same calculating eyes that could shift from warm to cold in seconds. Your family has money, I said slowly. Serious money. Lawyers, connections, political influence. What are you saying? I'm saying your mother didn't just steal my restaurant. She's betting that I can't afford to fight her for it. I grabbed my keys from the counter. She's about to learn exactly how wrong she is. Where are you going? To see what she's done to my father's life's work. Sophia, wait. But I was already out the door, Christmas morning forgotten, driving toward the confrontation that would either save my family's legacy or destroy my marriage completely. The drive to Papa's Cucina normally took 12 minutes. I made it in 7, running 2 red lights and taking corners like I was fleeing a crime scene. Maybe I was, fleeing the crime of my own naivety, of trusting that grief had limits, that even Diane wouldn't kick someone when they were this far down. The restaurant sat on Mulberry Street like a wounded animal, and seeing it made my chest physically ache. The familiar red awning that Dad had replaced just last spring was already gone, replaced with stark white vinyl that read, property of Meridian Holdings, and no trespassing. Yellow caution tape wrapped around the entrance like crime scene ribbon. But it was the dumpster that made me pull over and vomit into the gutter. A massive industrial dumpster sat in the parking lot, and I could see the corner of Dad's hand-painted menu board sticking out the top. The one he'd commissioned from a local artist 10 years ago, featuring watercolor illustrations of his signature dishes. Irreplaceable. In the garbage like it meant nothing. I stumbled toward the dumpster, my Christmas pajamas and winter coat a ridiculous combination, but I didn't care. I had to see what else they'd thrown away. Ma'am, you can't be here. A security guard materialized from a parked SUV I hadn't noticed. Young guy, probably working Christmas morning because he needed the money. He looked almost as miserable as I felt. This is my father's restaurant, I said, still walking toward the dumpster. I'm sorry for your loss, but I have orders. No one on the property without authorization from Meridian Holdings. I peered into the dumpster and my heart shattered completely. Dad's collection of vintage Italian cookbooks, water damaged now but still recognizable. The photo collage of family recipes that had hung behind the register for 20 years. His chef's coat with Papa embroidered on the chest. They hadn't just bought the building. They were erasing every trace of what it had been. When did this start? I asked the guard. He glanced around nervously. Look, lady, I'm not supposed to. Please. My voice cracked. It's Christmas morning and someone threw my father's life in a dumpster. Just tell me when. His shoulders sagged. Crew showed up at midnight. Had a whole cleaning service, some contractors. Lady in an expensive car supervising everything. Real, intense about making sure nothing got saved. Intense. That was Diane, all right. Probably stood there in her designer boots directing them to throw away 30 years of memories like they were contaminated. My phone buzzed. Jake. Sophia, where are you? Looking at what your mother did. I got through to her. His voice was tight. She's driving back from the spa. Says she wants to explain everything in person. Explain. I laughed, and it came out sharp and bitter. What's to explain? She bought my father's restaurant and immediately started gutting it. That's not, she says the building was going to be sold anyway. That she was protecting it. Protecting it? I gestured wildly at the dumpster, even though Jake couldn't see me. She threw away Dad's cookbooks. His photos. Everything that made this place special is in a goddamn garbage bin. Sophia, please come home. We can figure this out together. No. The word came out harder than I intended. I'm calling a lawyer. Today. Christmas or not. It's Christmas morning. No lawyer is. Then I'll find one who is. I was already Googling on my phone. Your mother made a mistake, Jake. She thought grief would make me weak, but it's making me furious. Please don't do anything permanent until we can all sit down and... Permanent? I stared at the dumpster full of my father's legacy. Your mother already did something permanent. She declared war on Christmas morning. I hung up and kept scrolling through lawyer listings. Because Jake was wrong about one thing, someone would take my call today. Emergency legal services existed for a reason, and this definitely qualified as an emergency. The emergency legal hotline connected me to a paralegal who sounded like she'd rather be anywhere else on Christmas morning, but her tone shifted when I explained the situation. Ma'am, you're describing what could be fraudulent conveyance and estate interference. Are you somewhere safe right now? Safe. What a concept. I'm standing outside my father's restaurant watching them throw away his life's work. I need you to document everything. Photos, videos, anything you can see. Don't go onto the property, but record what's visible from public areas. I started filming, narrating what I was seeing. The dumpster. The changed locks. The systematic erasure of Papa's Cucina happening in real time. My voice stayed steady until I zoomed in on Dad's chef's coat crumpled between broken furniture. They're destroying evidence, I whispered to the phone. Which is exactly why we need those photos. I'm connecting you with Attorney Morrison, he handles emergency injunctions and he's available today. While I waited for the transfer, another text from Jake, Mom's here. She's furious that you called lawyers. Says it shows you never intended to handle this like family. I stared at that message until the words blurred. Like family. As if family didn't steal from each other on Christmas morning. As if family didn't throw away decades of memories like garbage. Miss Chen. A crisp male voice came through the phone. This is David Morrison. I understand we have a time-sensitive situation. Someone bought my father's restaurant illegally and they're gutting it right now. On Christmas. Walk me through the timeline. I explained everything, Dad's death 6 weeks ago, the probate process, the mysterious liens, the shell company, Diane's involvement. Morrison asked sharp questions, taking notes I could hear scratching through the phone. The timing is suspicious, he said finally. Filing liens immediately after death, rushing the sale, destroying contents before anyone can object. This has all the hallmarks of a coordinated attack on an estate. Can you stop them? I can try for an emergency injunction, but I'll need documentation. The will, probate filings, any communication about the sale. How quickly can you get those to me? I can have everything within 2 hours. Good. There's something else, if this was orchestrated, there might be more than one victim. Shell companies that engage in this kind of estate manipulation usually have a pattern. We should investigate what other properties Meridian Holdings has acquired recently. The implications hit me like ice water. You think she's done this before? I think someone with the resources to pull this off doesn't do it just once. Your mother-in-law might have been running this scheme for years. My phone buzzed with another text from Jake. Please come home. Mom wants to make this right. I showed the message to the security guard, who'd been pretending not to listen to my conversation. Does that sound like someone who wants to make things right? I gestured toward the dumpster. He shook his head. Lady, I've worked a lot of these property cleanouts. Never seen anyone so specific about destroying everything. Usually they just box up personal stuff for the family. She gave specific instructions. Oh yeah. Nothing sentimental gets saved. Nothing that connects this place to the previous owner. Those were her exact words. I put the phone back to my ear. Mr. Morrison. The destruction was intentional. She specifically ordered them to destroy anything sentimental. That's malicious destruction of estate assets. Get me a statement from that security guard if he's willing. This just became a much stronger case. The guard looked nervous. I don't want to lose my job. You won't, Morrison's voice was confident through the speaker. What they're doing is illegal. You're protected as a witness. My phone rang, Jake calling again. I let it go to voicemail, but not before I saw 3 more texts had come in. Then my phone rang again. And again. Ms. Chen, Morrison said, it sounds like they're getting nervous. That's good, it means they know they've overplayed their hand. But it also means they might escalate. Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight? Somewhere that isn't with your husband's family? The question hit me like a slap. Because until this moment, I'd been thinking about this as a legal problem. But Morrison was treating it like something more dangerous. Something that required me to hide from my own family. The voicemail from Jake was 8 seconds of heavy breathing followed by, Sophia, she's not handling this well. Please just come home. Not handling this well. As if she was the victim here. I was still standing outside Papa's Cusina when a black Mercedes pulled up to the curb. My stomach dropped, I recognized that car. Diane stepped out wearing a pristine white wool coat and sunglasses despite the overcast December sky. She looked like she was attending a photo shoot, not confronting the woman whose inheritance she'd stolen. Sophia, darling. Her voice carried that fake sweetness she used when other people were watching. We need to talk. The security guard shifted uncomfortably beside me. Morrison was still on the phone, and I could hear him typing rapidly. There's nothing to discuss, I said, not moving from where I stood. You stole my father's restaurant. Diane's smile never wavered, but something cold flickered behind her eyes. I saved it. The estate was drowning in debt, liens, violations, back taxes. The building would have gone to auction within weeks. What liens? What back taxes? But even as I asked, I was remembering the estate attorney's nervous behavior, his sudden eagerness to rush through probate. Your father wasn't as good with paperwork as he was with pasta sauce. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper meant only for me. Did you really think a little family restaurant could survive in today's market? I did you a favor, sweetheart. Now you can pursue something more realistic. The casual cruelty in her voice made my hands shake. More realistic than honoring my father's legacy. Your father's legacy. Diane laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Honey, your father's legacy is debt and health code violations. I have the documentation to prove it. Ms. Chen, Morrison's voice crackled through my phone. Are you recording this conversation? I wasn't, but I should have been. I fumbled with my phone, trying to start a voice recording without being obvious about it. The beautiful thing about shell companies, Diane continued, apparently not caring who heard her now, is how quickly they can identify distressed properties. Properties where the owners are emotionally compromised. Unable to make rational decisions. You planned this. The words came out as barely a whisper. Before Dad even died, you were planning this. Her smile widened. I've been watching that little restaurant lose money for years. Did you know your father took out a second mortgage last spring? Or that he was 3 months behind on his business insurance when he had his heart attack? Each revelation hit like a physical blow. Dad had never mentioned money troubles. Never let on that the restaurant was struggling. But here's what you're not understanding, Sophia. Diane's voice took on that patronizing tone she used when explaining why I wasn't good enough for her son. This isn't about the restaurant. This is about family hierarchy. You seem to think marrying Jake made you equal to us, but that was never going to happen. Ms. Chen, Morrison's urgent voice cut through my shock. I need you to keep her talking. What she's saying is extremely valuable. The security guard was backing away now, clearly uncomfortable with the direction this conversation had taken. Smart man. The liens were fake, I said, not really asking. The liens were strategically timed, Diane corrected. Amazing how many violations can be discovered when you know the right inspectors. When you contribute to the right political campaigns. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop recording or this gets worse. I looked up at Diane, who was now holding her own phone. How did you? Darling, I've been monitoring your communications since Jake announced your engagement. Did you really think I'd let my son marry someone without doing thorough research? The world tilted sideways again. She'd been spying on me for over a year. Watching, planning, waiting for the right moment to destroy everything I cared about. Now, Diane's voice turned businesslike. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call off your lawyer, accept a generous settlement for your father's personal effects, and we're all going to have a lovely Christmas dinner. Like family. I stared at her, this woman who just admitted to orchestrating my father's financial ruin, to surveillance, to theft. This woman who expected me to smile and pass the gravy afterward. Or? I asked. Her smile turned predatory. Or you'll discover that your father's problems were much worse than anyone realized. What other problems? The words came out steadier than I felt. Diane tilted her head, studying me like a predator deciding whether her prey was worth the effort. Well, there's the matter of the missing health department inspection reports from 2019. And those unfortunate food poisoning incidents that were never officially reported. That's impossible. Dad never. Your father never had any food poisoning incidents, she agreed cheerfully. But documentation can be discovered. Especially when former employees are facing their own legal troubles and need to cooperate with investigators. The casual way she said it made my blood freeze. She wasn't just threatening to fabricate evidence, she was threatening to destroy Dad's reputation posthumously. Ms. Chen, Morrison's voice was urgent through my phone. I'm recording everything through this call. Keep her talking. But my phone was buzzing again. Another text from the unknown number. Lawyer is making things worse for everyone. You're monitoring my calls too. I asked Diane. Sweetheart, you're family now. I monitor all my family's communications. She adjusted her sunglasses. It's called protection. Something you clearly need more of, given your recent, poor decision-making. A white van pulled up behind Diane's Mercedes, and two men in coveralls got out. They headed straight for the dumpster without acknowledging any of us. Wait, I called to them. You can't just. Actually, they can, Diane interrupted. It's all perfectly legal. Property cleanup, removal of debris. The new owners want a fresh start. I watched in horror as they began loading Dad's belongings into the van. His cookbooks, his photos, his chef's coat, everything disappearing into a vehicle I'd probably never see again. Stop. I started toward the van, but the security guard stepped into my path. Ma'am, I can't let you interfere with authorized cleanup operations. Authorized by who? She stole this building. Authorized by the legal owners, Diane said smoothly. Which, according to all filed documentation, is Meridian Holdings LLC. Morrison's voice cut through my panic. Ms. Chen, I'm expediting the emergency injunction. Can you get the license plate of that van? I tried to angle toward the van, but Diane moved to block my view. The wonderful thing about grief, she said conversationally, is how it makes people act so irrationally. Poor Jake is beside himself, wondering if his wife has had some sort of breakdown. Jake knows exactly what you did. Jake knows his mother purchased a distressed property to help resolve a complicated estate situation. Her voice took on a wounded tone. He's very disappointed that his wife chose litigation over family discussion. Very hurt that you'd attack his mother during the holidays. My phone rang, Jake calling again. This time I answered, putting it on speaker. Sophia, please come home. His voice sounded exhausted. Mom explained everything. The restaurant was going to be auctioned anyway. She saved it. Jake, she's destroying Dad's belongings right now. In front of me. She's cleaning out the building. That's normal, right? When you buy a property. The doubt in his voice hit me like a punch to the stomach. She'd gotten to him. Twisted the story just enough that her son, my husband, was questioning my version of events. Normal. I stared at Diane, who was smiling serenely. Jake, she admitted she planned this before Dad died. She. Sophia, you're scaring me. You're talking about conspiracies, Anne. I'm recording everything. I shouted. Morrison has it all on tape. Silence on the other end. Then Jake's voice, quieter now, you're recording family conversations. The disappointment in his tone was devastating. Somehow, in the span of one phone call, I'd become the villain. The unstable wife who was secretly recording people, making wild accusations, attacking his mother during Christmas. Diane's smile widened as she watched my marriage crumble in real time. You want to know what's really sad, Sophia? Diane's voice carried that mock sympathetic tone she perfected over the years. Jake was so excited to surprise you this Christmas. He'd been planning to propose expanding the restaurant, maybe franchising Papa's Cucina. He even had architectural drawings commissioned. My heart stopped. What? Oh, you didn't know. She pulled out her phone, swiping to a photo. He came to me last month asking for business advice. Such a sweet boy, wanting to honor your father's memory by growing the brand. The image on her screen showed detailed renovation plans. Papa's Cucina expanded into the adjacent storefront, a larger kitchen, outdoor seating. Jake's handwriting filled the margins with notes about preserving Dad's original recipes while modernizing the space. He was going to ask for your blessing on New Year's Eve, Diane continued. Make it a whole romantic thing. Your father's legacy combined with our family's business expertise. The cruelty was breathtaking. She'd taken Jake's love for me, his respect for my father, and weaponized it into the perfect cover story. Now when I accused her of theft, it would look like I was rejecting Jake's heartfelt tribute to Dad. Ms. Chen, Morrison's voice crackled through my phone, this is good. She's establishing premeditation. But I could barely hear him over the sound of my world collapsing. Because I could see exactly how this would play out, Jake genuinely thought he was helping. His mother had convinced him the restaurant needed saving, and his expansion plans would look like generous compensation for any inconvenience to me. The beautiful part, Diane said, clearly enjoying my stunned silence, is that Jake's plans are actually quite good. Better than anything your father could have managed. We're prepared to offer you a consulting position when we reopen. Minimum wage, of course, but you'd get to keep some connection to the place. Minimum wage. To consult on my own inheritance. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake, please come home. I have something important to show you. The expansion plans. He was going to show me the expansion plans, probably expecting gratitude and tears of joy. Not knowing his mother had stolen the restaurant to make his surprise possible. There's just one little problem, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. You falsified documents to steal this building. That's fraud, conspiracy, and probably racketeering given what Morrison said about your other properties. Diane's smile faltered for just a moment. Those are very serious accusations. The kind that destroy families. Make holidays uncomfortable for everyone. The kind that send people to prison, I corrected. Prison. She laughed, but it sounded forced now. Sweetheart, I'm a respected businesswoman with 30 years of real estate experience and connections throughout this city. You're a grieving daughter making wild claims about conspiracies. The van finished loading and pulled away from the curb. I watched 30 years of my father's life disappear around the corner, but something had shifted in my chest. Diane's confidence was cracking, just slightly. Morrison, I said into my phone, how long until that injunction? 40 minutes. But Ms. Chen, I think you should remove yourself from this situation now. She's escalating. He was right. Diane was typing rapidly on her phone, her composure slipping with each message. Whatever she was arranging, it wasn't going to be good for me. One more question, I said to Diane. How many other families have you done this to? Her typing stopped. I have no idea what you mean. Morrison thinks Meridian Holdings has a pattern. Other estates, other grieving families, other distressed properties that needed saving. For the first time since she'd arrived, Diane looked genuinely rattled. You're fishing. And you're about to catch something much bigger than you can handle. My phone rang. Jake again. This time I let it go to voicemail, but not before I saw the preview of his text. Mom says you're making threats now. Sophia, what's happening to you? She was poisoning him against me in real time. Every minute I spent fighting her was another minute she had to paint me as unstable, vindictive, dangerous. But I wasn't backing down. Not anymore. You know what I find interesting about your expansion plans? I said, pulling up my own phone. The ones Jake made for Papa's Cucina. Diane's fingers paused over her screen. What about them? The adjacent storefront you wanted him to expand into? I looked it up while you were gloating. I turned my phone toward her, showing the property records. It's also owned by Meridian Holdings. Has been for 6 months. The color drained from her face. Which means you didn't just steal my father's restaurant, I continued, my voice gaining strength. You've been buying up the entire block. Planning this expansion long before Jake ever came to you for advice. Morrison's voice crackled through my phone. Ms. Chen, that's exactly what we needed. Pattern of behavior, premeditation. Diane lunged forward and grabbed my phone, ending the call before throwing it hard against the restaurant's brick wall. The screen shattered on impact. Oops, she said, not sounding sorry at all. Accidents happen when people get emotional. The security guard stepped forward. Ma'am, I can't allow destruction of property. Send the bill to Meridian Holdings, Diane snapped. And I think we're done here. Property's closed for the day. But I was already pulling out my backup phone, the old iPhone I kept for emergencies. Dad had always said redundancy was crucial in business. Turned out it was crucial in warfare too. You made a mistake, I told Diane as I speed-dialed Morrison's office. You assumed grief would make me helpless. But you know what grief actually does? It clarifies priorities. And right now, my priority is making sure you never do this to another family. Another family? Diane's laugh sounded shrill now. You think this is about other families? This is about you understanding your place. You married into money, but that doesn't make you money. It makes you an employee. My call connected, but before I could speak, another black car pulled up. Jake stepped out, looking haggard and confused, followed by a man in an expensive suit I didn't recognize. Sophia, Jake called out, please, let's just go home and figure this out. The man in the suit approached with the confident stride of someone accustomed to solving problems through intimidation. Ms. Chen. I'm Richard Blackwood, Mrs. Hartley's attorney. I understand there's been some confusion about a property transaction. No confusion, I said, keeping Morrison's number ready to dial. Just theft. Blackwood smiled the way sharks smile. I have documentation here showing that your father's estate requested expedited sale due to mounting debts. Your signature is on file approving the transaction. My signature. On documents I'd never seen. That's forgery, I said, but my voice came out weaker than I intended. Is it? Blackwood pulled out a tablet, swiping to what looked like official legal documents. These were signed at the estate attorney's office on December 15th, witnessed and notarized. December 15th. The day of the meeting where Dad's lawyer had seemed nervous, rushed. The day I'd signed what I thought were routine probate forms. Jake moved closer, peering at the tablet. Sophia. Is that your signature? I looked at the screen, and my stomach dropped. It was my signature. On a document authorizing the sale of Papa's Cucina to resolve estate debts. I never signed that, I whispered, but doubt was creeping in. Had I? In my grief, had I signed something without reading it properly? This is what happens, Diane said softly, when people don't trust family to help them through difficult times. Mistakes get made. Papers get signed. And then everyone has to live with the consequences. The casual cruelty in her voice snapped something inside me. Because whether I'd signed that paper or not, whether Dad's lawyer was corrupt or just incompetent, one thing was crystal clear, Diane had orchestrated all of it. Morrison, I said into my backup phone as his office answered. I need that injunction now. And I need you to investigate a signature that may have been obtained under fraudulent pretenses. Diane's smile faltered again, but Blackwood stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm advising you to end this call. Continued harassment of my client could result in criminal charges. Your client confessed to monitoring my communications illegally. She admitted to falsifying property liens. She threatened to fabricate evidence against my dead father. I kept my eyes on Diane. Which part of that would you like me to stop harassing her about? Blackwood's expression shifted from confident to calculating. Those are serious accusations that would require proof. Proof that no longer exists since you destroyed your primary recording device. He gestured toward my shattered phone lying against the brick wall, and I realized how perfectly that had been orchestrated. Diane's emotional outburst had eliminated the evidence while making me look unstable. I have backup recordings, I lied, hoping Morrison's office system had captured everything. Do you? Diane's smile returned. Because I think what you have is grief-induced paranoia and a very active imagination. Jake stepped between us, his face pale. Can everyone just stop? This is insane. Mom, if you really bought the restaurant to help, why does it look like you're destroying it? Because, sweetheart, Diane's voice softened as she addressed her son, sometimes helping means making hard choices that others can't handle emotionally. The building needed significant renovations to be profitable again. What Sophia sees as destruction is actually preparation for rebirth. Rebirth? I stared at her in disbelief. You threw away my father's cookbooks. I preserved the recipes, she said smoothly. They're being professionally digitized for the expanded restaurant concept, along with updated versions that meet modern health standards. Jake's face brightened slightly. You're still planning to honor Papa's recipes? Of course, darling. But properly executed this time. With professional kitchen management and real business oversight. The way she said professional and real made it clear that my father had been neither. And watching Jake's expression, I could see him buying into her narrative. His mother wasn't destroying Dad's legacy, she was improving it. What about the photos? I pressed. The family pictures on the walls. Being restored and reframed, Blackwood interjected, consulting his tablet. Mrs. Hartley has hired a professional archival service to preserve all historical elements of the establishment. It was a perfect answer. Reasonable, considerate, exactly what a thoughtful business owner would do. Except I'd watched them throw everything into a dumpster with my own eyes. Then where are they now? I demanded. Where's this archival service? What's the company name? Diane and Blackwood exchanged a quick glance, so fast that Jake missed it, but I caught it. A moment of coordination, of checking their story. Heritage Preservation Solutions, Blackwood said without missing a beat. Their downtown, climate-controlled facility. Very reputable. Another lie, delivered so smoothly that even I almost believed it. But the timing gave them away, no one had that information ready unless they prepared for this exact question. My backup phone rang. Morrison. Don't answer that, Blackwood warned. Any further consultation with counsel while we're attempting good faith family resolution could be seen as negotiating in bad faith. Negotiating? I laughed bitterly. What exactly are we negotiating? You've already stolen everything. We're negotiating Sophia's future with this family, Diane said, her tone turning ominous. Because there are two ways this can go. She can accept that sometimes mothers-in-law know best and learn to be grateful for help. Or what? Jake's voice was sharp now, finally picking up on his mother's threat. Or she can continue down this path of accusations and lawsuits and discover just how complicated family relationships can become. Diane's smile was arctic. Marriages require trust, after all. And trust is so easily damaged by paranoia. The implication hit like ice water. She wasn't just threatening to destroy Dad's legacy, she was threatening to destroy my marriage by convincing Jake I was mentally unstable. And given how confused and exhausted he looked right now, it might actually work. My phone stopped ringing. Morrison's voicemail kicked in, his voice urgent, emergency injunction approved. Federal marshals are en route to secure the property. Whatever you do, don't leave the scene. Diane's face went white as she heard the message. Federal marshals? Jake asked, bewildered. When fraud crosses state lines through shell companies, it becomes a federal matter, I explained, watching Diane's composure finally crack completely. Blackwood was already heading for his car. Mrs. Hartley, I think this conversation is over. But it was too late to run. In the distance, I could hear sirens approaching. The federal marshals arrived like something out of a movie, 3 black SUVs, red and blue lights flashing, cutting through the Christmas morning quiet like knives. I'd never been so happy to see law enforcement in my life. Nobody move. The lead marshal called out as his team spread across the property. This is now a secured federal crime scene. Diane's face had gone ashen, but she recovered quickly. Officers, I think there's been a misunderstanding. This is a private family matter. Ma'am, step away from the property line. The marshal's voice brooked no argument. We have a federal injunction regarding fraudulent property transfer and destruction of evidence. Blackwood tried to intervene. I'm Mrs. Hartley's legal counsel. Perhaps we could. Sir, unless you're prepared to present documentation superseding a federal court order, I suggest you step back as well. Jake stood frozen between his mother and me, watching his Christmas morning turn into a crime scene. Sophia, what did you do? I called a lawyer who actually knows the law, I said, but my voice was shaking. Because even with federal marshals here, even with injunctions and evidence, I could see the doubt in Jake's eyes growing deeper. One of the marshals approached me. Miss Chen. I'm Marshal Rodriguez. Attorney Morrison briefed us on the situation. We need you to walk us through what's been removed from the property. They had a whole cleaning crew here at midnight, I explained, pointing toward where the dumpster had been. Industrial dumpster, white van, systematic removal of all personal property belonging to my father. Rodriguez made notes while another marshal photographed the empty lot where the dumpster had sat. Did you document any of the removed items? Some photos on my phone, but Mrs. Hartley destroyed it. I gestured toward my shattered iPhone against the brick wall. She what? Jake's voice cracked with disbelief. Your mother grabbed my phone and threw it when she realized I was recording her confession. That's not what happened, Diane interjected, her lawyer voice returning. Sophia became agitated and dropped her phone. I was trying to help. Ma'am. Rodriguez's tone was ice cold. Destruction of evidence is a federal crime. I'd suggest you remain silent until your attorney advises you otherwise. But the damage was done. Jake had heard 2 conflicting versions of events, and I could see him trying to reconcile the mother he'd known his whole life with the woman I was describing. It was an impossible choice, and we both knew it. There's something else, I told Rodriguez, pulling out my backup phone. She admitted to falsifying property liens, monitoring my communications illegally, and running some kind of estate manipulation scheme through shell companies. Rodriguez's eyebrows rose. You have recordings of these admissions? Partial recordings through my attorney's office line. I prayed Morrison's system had captured everything clearly. Jake, Diane's voice turned pleading, you can't seriously believe I would. I don't know what to believe anymore. Jake exploded, running his hands through his hair. 6 hours ago we were making Christmas pancakes, and now there are federal agents treating my mother like a criminal. The raw pain in his voice broke something inside me. Because this was exactly what Diane had counted on, that destroying our marriage would hurt me more than losing the restaurant ever could. The expansion plans, I said quietly. Ask her about the expansion plans, Jake. Ask her when she really bought that adjacent storefront. Rodriguez looked between us sharply. What expansion plans? And that's when I knew we had her. Because the timeline of her property acquisitions would tell the whole story, and federal agents were very good at following paper trails. Diane's perfect Christmas morning ambush was about to become her worst nightmare. Ma'am, we'll need documentation of all property acquisitions made by Meridian Holdings in the past 18 months, Rodriguez told Diane, whose face was now completely pale. I'd need to consult with my business manager, she stammered. That information isn't something I carry with me. Convenient, Rodriguez replied dryly. Because according to our preliminary investigation, Meridian Holdings has acquired 17 properties in this district since last summer. All former family businesses. All purchased under similar circumstances. 17 properties. The number hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about Papa's Cusina. Diane had been running a systematic operation, targeting grieving families when they were most vulnerable. That's impossible, Jake said, but his voice lacked conviction now. Mom, that can't be true. Diane's composure was cracking visibly. Jake, sweetheart, you don't understand how complex commercial real estate can be. Ma'am, Rodriguez interrupted, I'm going to need you to come with us for questioning. This is not an arrest, but given the scope of what we're uncovering, we need detailed statements about your business operations. I'm not saying anything without my lawyer present, Diane snapped, her mask finally slipping completely. Dawn was the concerned mother-in-law, replaced by someone I'd never seen before, cold, calculating, and desperate. Jake stared at his mother as if seeing her for the first time. 17 families. Mom, please tell me this is some kind of mistake. The only mistake, Diane said, her voice turning vicious, was underestimating how far your wife would go to destroy this family. Look around, Jake. Look what she's done. Federal agents at a family business on Christmas morning. Your mother being treated like a criminal. All because she couldn't accept help gracefully. The way she said it, with such conviction, such wounded righteousness, made even me doubt for a moment whether I'd overreacted. But then Rodriguez spoke up. Mrs. Hartley, we've been investigating Meridian Holdings for 6 months as part of a larger task force on estate fraud. Your situation just gave us the probable cause we needed for search warrants. 6 months. They'd already been watching her. Jake's phone started buzzing incessantly. He glanced at it and his face went even whiter. It's Dad. And Uncle Robert. And. He scrolled through the notifications. Everyone's calling. The story's going public, Rodriguez explained matter-of-factly. Federal raids tend to attract media attention. I watched Jake realize what this meant. His mother's arrest wasn't going to be a quiet family matter. Their social circle, his business contacts, everyone they knew would see Diane Hartley led away in handcuffs on the evening news. This is your fault, Jake said quietly, turning to me. Whatever she did wrong, you could have handled this privately. You didn't have to humiliate our entire family. The accusation stung because part of me wondered if he was right. Had I escalated too quickly? Could this have been resolved without destroying Jake's relationship with his mother? But then I thought about the 17 other families. The systematic targeting. The midnight cleanup crews erasing decades of memories. Your mother counted on me handling this privately, I said. She counted on grief making me too weak to fight back. But some things are worth fighting for, even if it costs everything else. Jake's eyes filled with tears. Including our marriage. The question hung between us like a blade, because we both knew the answer. Diane had won after all, maybe not the restaurant, but something far more valuable. She'd made me choose between justice and love, knowing I'd choose justice every time. And watching her satisfied smile as Jake walked away from me, I realized this had been her real plan all along. The aftermath of Jake walking away felt like drowning in slow motion. Rodriguez was still coordinating with his team, Diane was being read her rights, and I stood there watching my marriage disintegrate in real time. Ms. Chen, Rodriguez approached me as they loaded Diane into the back of an SUV. We're going to need you to come downtown for a formal statement. The scope of this operation is larger than we initially thought. I nodded numbly, but my phone was already ringing. Morrison. Sophia, are you safe? I'm seeing news reports. I'm safe. But Jake. I glanced around the parking lot where my husband had been standing moments ago. His car was gone. I think my marriage just became collateral damage. I'm sorry. But there's something else you need to know. We've identified 12 of the 17 properties Rodriguez mentioned. All family restaurants, all acquired after the death of the primary owner. This isn't just fraud, it's predatory estate manipulation on an industrial scale. The magnitude was staggering. While I'd been fighting for Papa's Cusina, 12 other families had already lost their legacies. People who'd been too overwhelmed by grief to recognize the systematic destruction happening around them. How long has she been doing this? Based on property records, at least 3 years. Maybe longer. Sophia, your case broke this wide open, but you need to understand, when this goes to trial, you'll be the star witness in a federal racketeering case. Federal racketeering. The words made my legs feel weak. What does that mean exactly? It means Diane Hartley isn't just going to lose her real estate empire. She's looking at 20 years minimum in federal prison. And everyone connected to her operations, lawyers, inspectors, estate attorneys who falsified documents, they're all going down with her. I thought about Jake's father, about the rest of the Hartley family. How many of them had known? How deeply did this corruption run? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Congratulations. You've destroyed everything your father worked for and your marriage. Hope it was worth it. Then another, check your email. My hands shook as I opened my email app. The message had no sender name, just a subject line, your father's real legacy. The email contained a single PDF attachment, bank statements from Papa's Cusina going back 2 years. Statements showing massive losses, bounced checks, desperate loans from questionable sources. The restaurant hadn't just been struggling, it had been failing catastrophically. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the final entry, a $50,000 deposit made 2 weeks before Dad's heart attack, from a shell company I didn't recognize. With a memo line that read, consultation, property development. My father had taken money from someone. Someone who was now making it look like he'd been paid off before his death. Rodriguez, I called out, my voice barely steady. I think someone's trying to frame my father. He hurried over as I showed him the email. His expression darkened as he scrolled through the bank statements. This is intimidation, he said immediately. Someone's trying to discredit your testimony by making it look like your father was complicit. But what if he was? The words came out as a whisper. What if Dad knew the restaurant was worthless and took money to keep quiet about it? Then why would they need to steal it? Rodriguez's logic was sound, but doubt had already taken root in my mind. Ms. Chen, this is exactly what they want, for you to question everything, to start wondering if your father was somehow involved. My phone rang. Jake. I saw the news, his voice was hollow. Moms all over every channel. Prominent real estate developer arrested for federal racketeering. They're calling her the estate vulture. Jake, I'm sorry. Are you? Because it looks like you got exactly what you wanted. My mother destroyed, our family humiliated, everything we built together turned to ash. That's not what I wanted. I just wanted. You wanted justice. I get it. But did you ever stop to think about what justice would cost? His voice cracked. My dad's having chest pains. The stress of seeing Mom arrested, the media circus, he's in the emergency room right now. The guilt hit like a physical blow. Jake's father was a good man who'd never hurt anyone. Now he was paying the price for his wife's crimes and my pursuit of truth. Which hospital? I asked. Don't. Jake's voice turned cold. Don't come here. Don't call. Don't text. I can't. I can't look at you right now without seeing federal agents and my mother in handcuffs. The line went dead, and I realized that Diane had gotten exactly what she wanted after all. She might go to prison, but she'd succeeded in destroying the thing that mattered most to me. My marriage was over, and somehow, I was still losing. The federal building downtown felt like a fortress of cold marble and fluorescent lighting. I'd been sitting in interview room 3 for 2 hours, watching Rodriguez and his partner, Agent Chen, no relation, despite the shared surname, piece together what they were calling the largest estate fraud operation in the district's history. We've traced the shell companies back 18 months, Agent Chen explained, sliding documents across the metal table. Meridian Holdings is just the tip of the iceberg. There are at least 6 other LLCs, all connected through a web of financial transfers that would make a money laundering operation jealous. I stared at the organizational chart they'd created, dozens of companies, all ultimately controlled by Diane, all targeting the same vulnerable demographic, recently bereaved family business owners. The pattern is almost algorithmic, Rodriguez added. Death certificate filed, obituary published, shell company purchases adjacent properties within 30 days, mysterious liens and violations appear within 60 days, forced sale within 90 days. How did you find all this? We've been tracking unusual property transfer patterns for months. Your case gave us the smoking gun we needed, but Sophia, Rodriguez leaned forward. We think there are more victims than we initially calculated. Possibly dozens more. The weight of that settled over me like a blanket of lead. How many families? We're still counting. Agent Chen's expression was grim. But here's what's really troubling, some of the earlier victims didn't just lose their businesses. 3 families were forced into bankruptcy. 1 lost their home. Another family, the stress contributed to a second death. A second death. Someone else had died because of Diane's greed. My phone buzzed with another message from that unknown number. Still think you're the hero of this story? I showed it to Rodriguez, who immediately called in a tech specialist. We're going to trace this, but I suspect it's coming from someone in Diane's network who hasn't been rounded up yet. There are others still out there. An operation this sophisticated requires a team. Corrupt inspectors, compromised estate attorneys, fraudulent appraisers. We've identified at least 12 co-conspirators, and only half are in custody. The interview room door opened, and Morrison walked in looking like he'd aged 5 years since morning. Sophia, we need to talk privately. Rodriguez and Agent Chen exchanged glances. We'll give you a few minutes, but don't leave the building. Once we were alone, Morrison sat heavily in the chair across from me. I've been digging into those bank statements someone sent you. The $50,000 deposit to your father's account. Please tell me it's fabricated. It's real. But it's not what they want you to think. He pulled out his laptop, opening a file. The shell company that made the payment? It's called Hartley Development Consulting. I traced it back, it was created specifically to make that single transaction. I don't understand. They paid your father $50,000 2 weeks before he died, then used that payment as evidence that he was complicit in some kind of scheme. But look at what happened immediately after the deposit. He scrolled down to show the next day's transactions. The entire $50,000 had been transferred out, $25,000 to St. Mary's Children's Hospital, $20,000 to the local food bank, and $5,000 to a scholarship fund for culinary students. Your father didn't keep a penny, Morrison said quietly. Whatever they told him that money was for, he gave it all away within 24 hours. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by a deeper sadness. Dad had been suspicious enough to get rid of the money, but not suspicious enough to report what was happening. They probably told him it was a consultation fee for business advice, Morrison continued. Made it seem legitimate, got him to cash the check, then used the transaction as leverage. My phone rang. An unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately when I answered. Hello, Sophia. Diane's voice was calm, collected, completely at odds with someone who'd been arrested hours ago. How are you calling me? Aren't you in jail? Bail hearing was expedited. Amazing what good lawyers and political connections can accomplish. Her laugh was cold. I wanted to give you one last chance to reconsider your position. My position? You've won, darling. Federal charges, media circus, my reputation in ruins. Congratulations. But here's what you haven't considered, what happens next. Morrison was frantically signaling for me to keep her talking while he alerted the agents. What happens next is you go to prison, I said. Perhaps. But first comes discovery. Months of legal proceedings where every detail of your father's business gets examined under a microscope. Every transaction, every relationship, every secret he might have kept. The threat was clear. Even if she went down, she'd drag Dad's memory through the mud in the process. And then there's Jake, she continued. Poor boy is having such a difficult time reconciling the woman he married with the one who destroyed his family. Did you know he's been calling divorce attorneys? My heart stopped. You're lying. Am I? Check your email again, sweetheart. I think you'll find today's revelations are just the beginning. The line went dead just as Rodriguez burst back into the room. But it was too late, the damage was already done. Because when I checked my email, there was a new message waiting. And this one was going to change everything I thought I knew about my father, my marriage, and the woman I'd gone to war with. The subject line read, "What Jake found in your father's safe." The email attachment took forever to load on the federal building's spotty Wi-Fi, and every second felt like an eternity. Morrison was reading over my shoulder while Rodriguez paced behind us, muttering into his phone about compromised bail hearings and judicial corruption. When the image finally appeared, my world tilted sideways. It was a photograph of documents spread across what looked like Jake's kitchen table. Our kitchen table. Legal papers, contracts, and correspondence, all bearing my father's signature. But it wasn't the documents that made my blood freeze. It was Jake's handwriting in the margins, his notes analyzing what he was reading. Property development agreement, signed 6 months before death. Multiple meetings with DH, why didn't Sophia know? Restaurant sale was his idea. Morrison leaned closer to the screen. These look like legitimate documents, but they're not. The voice came from behind us. Agent Chen had returned with a tablet and a grim expression. We just raided Diane Hartley's office. Found the originals of these contracts in her safe, along with something interesting. She turned her tablet toward us, showing a video file. Security camera footage from your father's restaurant, dated 3 months ago. Your father meeting with Diane Hartley. They look friendly. My hands started shaking as I watched the silent footage. Dad and Diane sitting at table 12, the same table where Jake had proposed, sharing coffee and going through paperwork together. Dad was smiling, nodding, even laughing at something she said. This has to be fake, I whispered. The timestamp is legitimate, Agent Chen said carefully. But here's what's interesting, look at the time code. 11:47 p.m. Why would your father be meeting with your future mother-in-law at the restaurant almost at midnight? Morrison was already typing on his laptop. Sophia, when did Jake propose to you? 6 months ago. April 15th. The date was burned into my memory. And when did your father and Diane supposedly sign this development agreement? I looked back at the documents Jake had photographed. The signature date was April 20th, 5 days after Jake proposed. She approached him right after the engagement, I realized. But why would Dad agree to anything with her? My phone buzzed. A text from Jake, found Dad's safe combination in his desk. We need to talk. Tonight. Then another, there are things about your father you didn't know. Things that change everything. Rodriguez was coordinating with his team, but I could see the concern in his eyes. Ms. Chen, I need to ask, is there any possibility your father was involved in this voluntarily? Any financial pressures he might not have told you about? No. Absolutely not. But even as I said it, doubts were creeping in. The restaurant had been struggling. Dad had seemed stressed in his final months, distracted in ways I'd attributed to his heart condition. There's something else, Agent Chen said reluctantly. She swiped to another document on her tablet. We found a life insurance policy your father took out 8 months ago. $2 million, with a specific clause about business partnerships. $2 million. Dad had never mentioned any life insurance beyond the basic policy that covered funeral expenses. The beneficiary isn't you, she continued. It's something called the Papa's Legacy Trust. Established 6 months ago with Diane Hartley as the trustee. The room started spinning. My father had created a trust with Diane as the trustee. Had planned some kind of partnership that excluded me entirely. Morrison was furiously taking notes. This is sophisticated manipulation, but there might be a legitimate explanation. My phone rang. Jake. I'm at the restaurant, his voice was strained. Or what's left of it. Sophia, you need to see what else was in Dad's safe. The real documents, not whatever Mom's lawyers fabricated. What real documents? Letters. Dozens of them. To you. Jake's voice cracked. All dated after his heart attack diagnosis. All explaining everything. My heart stopped. What heart attack diagnosis? Dad never. 6 months ago, Sophia. He knew he was dying. And he knew Mom was planning something, so he tried to protect you. But she found the letters before he could give them to you. Rodriguez was signaling for me to put the call on speaker. Jake, where exactly are you right now? Inside Papa's cucina. I still have Mom's keys. His voice dropped to a whisper. Sophia, she didn't just steal your restaurant. She manipulated Dad when he was terrified and dying, convinced him that selling to her was the only way to preserve his legacy for you. That doesn't make sense. It does if you know what's really in these letters. Dad wasn't protecting the restaurant from debt. He was protecting it from something much worse. Someone who'd been threatening him for months. The line crackled with static, then Jake's voice came back urgent and scared. Sophia, I don't think Mom was working alone. And I don't think I'm alone in here right now. The call cut to dead silence, and Rodriguez was already running for the door. The drive to Papa's cucina felt like racing toward the edge of a cliff. Rodriguez had 3 patrol cars following us, but all I could think about was Jake's terrified whisper before the line went dead. Whatever was happening at the restaurant, my husband was trapped in the middle of it. Federal agents are 2 minutes out, Rodriguez said into his radio as we screeched into the parking lot. Suspect may be armed and holding a civilian. The restaurant looked different in the darkness, menacing instead of welcoming. But I could see light flickering through the windows, and Jake's car parked behind the building. "Stay in the vehicle," Rodriguez ordered, but I was already opening my door. "That's my husband in there. And getting yourself killed won't help him." My phone buzzed. Text from Jake's number: "Come in alone or he dies." I showed it to Rodriguez, who immediately radioed for the building to be surrounded. This is now a hostage situation. But I wasn't waiting for protocol. While Rodriguez coordinated with the SWAT team, I slipped around to the back entrance, the door Dad never bothered to lock, the one Mrs. Chen from next door used when she forgot her keys. The door was slightly ajar, and I could hear voices from inside. Jake's voice, strained and frightened, and another man's voice I didn't recognize. "Told you to keep her under control," the stranger was saying. "Instead, she's brought down the entire operation." "I tried," Jake replied, and my heart broke at how defeated he sounded. But she wouldn't stop. Even when Mom offered her everything, she kept pushing. I crept closer, staying in the shadows by the kitchen entrance. Through the doorway, I could see Jake sitting at table 12 with his hands zip-tied behind his back. A man in an expensive suit stood over him, someone I'd never seen before, but who carried himself with the authority of someone used to giving orders. 20 years we've been running this operation," the man continued. 20 years of perfect execution, and your wife destroys it all in one Christmas morning. She didn't know. She didn't need to know. That was the point. The man pulled out his phone. "Now she's going to watch you disappear, and maybe she'll finally understand the cost of her heroics." That's when I saw the letters scattered across the table, dozens of envelopes in Dad's handwriting, all addressed to me. The real story of what had happened, written in my father's careful script. I managed to photograph several pages with my phone before the man turned around. "Hello, Sophia," he said calmly. "I was hoping you'd join us. Makes this conversation much simpler." "Let him go," I said, stepping into the dining room. "Whatever this is about, Jake isn't part of it. Isn't he? Your husband has been reporting your activities to our organization for months. How do you think we stayed one step ahead of every move you made?" My world shattered. "That's not true." Jake's eyes met mine, filled with anguish. "Sophia, I thought I was protecting you. They said if I kept them informed about your plans, they could make sure you didn't get hurt by fighting Mom's business decisions." The betrayal cut deeper than anything Diane had done. My own husband had been feeding information to the people destroying my father's legacy. "But here's the beautiful irony," the man continued. "Jake's reports actually helped us plan your father's death perfectly. My father had a heart attack. Your father had a heart attack because we've been slowly poisoning his food for months. Just enough digitalis to stress his cardiovascular system, not enough to be detected in a routine autopsy." His smile was arctic. Amazing what access to someone's kitchen can accomplish. The room spun as the implications hit me. They hadn't just stolen Dad's restaurant, they'd murdered him for it. But that's when I heard the most beautiful sound in the world, Rodriguez's voice through a megaphone outside. "Federal agents. Building is surrounded." The man's composure finally cracked. He reached for something in his jacket, but I was already moving, grabbing one of Dad's heavy cast iron pans from the kitchen counter. The pan connected with his skull with a satisfying crack, and he dropped like a stone. By the time the federal agents burst through the door, I was untying Jake's hands while sirens wailed outside. The letters were spread across the table, Dad's final gift to me, the truth he tried so hard to preserve. Rodriguez surveyed the scene, taking in the unconscious man and the scattered evidence. "Ms. Chen, you've just taken down the head of a 20-year criminal conspiracy." But I was reading Dad's letters, tears streaming down my face as his words revealed everything: how he discovered the poisoning but couldn't prove it, how he pretended to cooperate while secretly documenting everything, how he'd used his final months to build a case that would destroy them all. My father hadn't just left me a restaurant. He'd left me justice, wrapped in love letters I'd almost never received. Jake looked at me across the table, his face streaked with tears. "Can you ever forgive me?" I thought about Dad's words, about love and legacy and the price of doing what's right. "We'll see," I said. "But first, let's finish what my father started." 6 months later, Papa's Cucina reopened with a new name, Papa's Legacy. The walls were covered with photos of all the families Diane's operation had targeted, 17 restaurants restored, dozens of legacies preserved. Jake and I were still working on forgiveness, but we were working on it together. Some betrayals cut deep enough to leave permanent scars, but Dad's letters had taught me something important about love. Sometimes the people we care about make terrible mistakes trying to protect us. Diane got 25 years in federal prison. The man with the expensive suit, Vincent Carrera, head of what the FBI called the most sophisticated estate fraud ring in U.S. history, got life without parole for murder. And every morning when I unlocked Papa's Legacy, I could hear Dad's voice in the kitchen, reminding me that food is love made tangible, and that some fights are worth everything they cost. The restaurant was more than saved, it was reborn, stronger than ever, built on a foundation of truth instead of theft. Sometimes justice tastes better than revenge.